flood safety and evacuation outside of Eugene, Oregon from the University of Oregon. We're here to talk to you about Seattle preparedness.
Imagine a waitress. Let's call her. She works at a restaurant on Alaskan Way, overlooking the bay. One day, her and the patrons look outside and see the waves are going a little higher than normal, but they pay it no mind. And because at our restaurant, they watch TV off of a DVR, so the emergency broadcasts are not received by the patrons. But they continue watching the YouTube until Rebecca looks back outside the window over the bay and sees the water levels rising. Being a loyal worker at this restaurant, she helps the patrons evacuate to high ground. But as she's leaving, the water has already risen about a foot. She trips and falls and receives a minor concussion. You would have soon to be able to go on along her way and get to high ground. But as she's unconscious, she drowns in this foot of water. So, we have two different situations for flooding. We have floods caused by heavy rain, and as you'll see on the next slide, floods caused by river flooding. So, floods caused by heavy rain are fairly frequent, about 1 in every 3 years in Seattle. So as you can see by this illustration, in the red are those categories and influence that have a 5, which is the highest impact, which are frequency and geographic scope. By frequency, we mean that floods caused by heavy rain are very frequent and you can expect them to happen. Under geographic scope, this type of flooding will affect all of Seattle and will touch different lives in the different neighborhoods. Under 2, minor impact in blue, we have duration, displaced households and suffering, economy, environment, structure, transportation. So the duration of a flood caused by heavy rain is less than 5 and will only displace about 25 households. However, these households until water damage is fixed and flooding goes down. This will also affect transportation and the economy of the Midville, South Park, and Lake City businesses. So transportation will be stopped for a little. Under 1, very minor to no impact, are health effects, deaths, injuries, critical services and utilities, confidence in government, and cascading effects. Because of the frequency of heavy rain flooding, the government knows how to deal with this fairly well. However, they have no evacuation plan set. There will be no fatalities in the event of heavy rain flooding and no effects on critical services and utilities, and there will be no chain events such as landslides and otherwise. However, river flooding, although much less frequent, have much higher impacts, so we need to be aware of these as well. Because in the event of these happening, if we are unprepared, they can have devastating consequences. Under 5, for highest impact, we have geographic scope. Okay, river flooding. If you look at the geography of Seattle, there are many rivers and bodies of water. All of Seattle to be affected by this type of flooding. Under high impact, and 4, under orange, we have duration, households and suffering, and transportation. The duration of this type of flooding is longer than a week, which causes many people to be from their homes, much damage, and transportation to be blocked for a while. Under moderate impact, we have economy, structures, critical services and utilities, confidence in government, and cascading effects. River flooding is that it can have cascading effects. There will be fatalities in the event of this type of flooding that can be caused by landslides and hazardous materials. Because in the event of this type of flooding, sewage systems will be overflowed, environmental impacts by sludge, waste, and other detrimental substances. The economy will be impacted and the confidence in the government. If we're prepared to deal with this type of flooding, how can our citizens be able to trust us? How can they expect us to keep them safe? Under minor impacts, we have frequency, effects, deaths and injuries, and environment. So the frequency, this type of a 500 to 1,000 year event. That does not mean that it will occur in 500 to 1,000 years. That means that the likelihood of this event is 1 in 1,000 years. That still means this type of flooding could happen any second of any day. The deaths and injuries are less than 10 people, however, 800 injuries, which can be very detrimental. As we said in our earlier story, a concussion can be caused, which can cause brain and then and you can have broken bones, and you can even be buried by land. And the environmental damages can take a very long time to recuperate from.
All right, so how do we mitigate some of this disaster? We know that Seattle has great emergency services. They have fantastic fire, fantastic police, and fantastic response times. However, what Seattle lacks is an efficient and effective plan. We don't want 650,000 people trying to evacuate all at once. Our plan is to start to integrate smartphone technology and other cell phones into evacuation. So what that can do is by using GPS satellite technology, pinpoint the different citizens who are in affected areas and need emergency evacuation. With the smartphone technology, we can also give sufficient and easy warning through text messages and other notifications. You can give detailed and effective instructions. The Maps application is already loaded onto a smartphone. But we want Seattle to start thinking preventative, and then we want them to start thinking responsive. So preventing a mass by creating the solution. What would the solution in a typical storm is heading to Seattle? Weather Service knows 10 days in advance. We want to give citizens about, and it might be something that's going to occur. Simple text messages can be sent. Warning or prepared for a major storm coming in, heavy rain, potential for floods. Within days of knowing whether or not an actual flood can occur, or during the day of a flood actually, another text message that can be sent out to seek higher ground, such as this text message here is displayed. A link for more up-to-date information from a Twitter account, a blog, a Facebook, or a website for the National Weather Service or the Kings County Emergency Services. An evacuation is necessary. What's great about smartphones is they now use lock screens. You can flip up the icon, unlock your phone, and take you directly to an application. As Seattleites with Starbucks, we are very well aware of that application technology. We can easily pay for our coffee. Same technology, just another application. Emergency situation. We turn red, give you the option for an evacuation, bypass any silencing function you may have on your phone, and start pinging at you to get your attention, to immediately look at your phone, get out of harm's way. 90% of Seattle uses a cell phone. 50% of those people have smartphones, and 50% don't. So what about those 50% that don't, or the 10% that don't even use a cell phone at all? The same TV broadcasts that are broadcast by the Weather Service will be utilized. And for those who have a simple text message with a phone number that they can call to the Emergency Services Center in Kings County or the National Service to give them instructions on what to do. We're just taking this one step further. Evacuation routes and procedures. So we give you a perspective on what this is like. As you can see, Ron asked away at the restaurant that she currently works at, but we need to the app will give her the best directions to the nearest shelter, which in this situation is the university. Of course, that can be rerouted and ping information from the emergency service to any location in Seattle that is the safest.
You are aware that that's actually the worst place and the hardest to get out of in like real life?
Well, that's why we offer locations in different areas. If that's not the best place to go, there's different shelters that can be set up in different areas in Seattle at high ground. With this technology, rerouting is easy to do. Information can be pinged to the cell phone, and if there is an outage or a closed bridge or a landslide, it can be in that area and be sent to that safe location.
So obviously during evacuation, during disaster, many things can go wrong, which is why we have emergency services in Seattle. On this image, we have hospitals and clinics as red dots. So hospital workers have many different abilities during disasters. They can help mitigate injuries, trauma, and tend to anyone who is harmed during this. They can also help with FEMA workers. After a disaster and during which, several several different types of aid must be supplied to different people. This can be first aid, trauma aid, this can be food, water, it can even be someone just to listen to tell you it's all right. Healthcare workers and hospitals are able to supply this care because the people there are trained to deal with this. Firefighters are also very important workers who can help during a disaster. Firefighters can ensure easy evacuation and can tend to environmental damage. Firefighters are trained to deal with floods. They are often the people that help with sandbagging and creating temporary blockades during a flood. They'll be able to help people evacuate from hazard zones and be able to mitigate any landslides or damages that occurred during the disaster. The police are also very important people during a disaster. They can ensure orderly evacuation and keep peace and calm in the evacuation. In our situation, you saw Rebecca taking it upon herself to evacuate of the restaurant. Although this was a very brave act, it resulted in her untimely death. If the police be able to ping people in danger zones, they can be able to go on location for evacuation. And then here, in this image, are emergency shelters and hazard zones. In red, hazard zones that are likely to flood. This also extends along the coast of Seattle. In green, these are possible and a few examples of different emergency shelters people can go to for safety and during the course of evacuation. These places will be stocked with different types of help and aid.
So two different scenarios, one being the mass panic scenario, so if there was evacuation of 603,000 people, which we're trying to avoid, and a situation where scenario. In a mass panic evacuation scenario, there most likely be deaths and, of course, 850,000 people displaced during a worst event. Half those people would potentially be injured, and the emergency cost would be $255,000. Efficient evacuation scenario can almost way less deaths and way less injuries. Efficiently evacuating citizens who are injured, and then working on citizens who are in a less likely to be in emergency situations. We can quickly and efficiently move people away from danger zones. It's like $300 per person evacuated, and that's saying that they were not an injured person. Getting them out efficiently and effectively. Alright, so the rebuild. Not everyone in Seattle has insurance, but it's most people, and most people have coverage, which is $20,000 structural, $8,000 small time. During a rebuild, although we're talking all flood zones are completely damaged. We're talking about a $1.25 million just in water recovery based on estimates in Seattle currently per 100 square feet. Of course, government payout would not be towards these kind of rebuilds, it would be more toward emergency situations to get streets cleared from landslides, debris out of the way, and things of that nature. But luckily with this, insurance is not a huge issue. So what are we looking for? We're looking to hire 3 application developers for 6-month contract for $40,000 per contract. So each developer is doing $40,000 for this 6 months of service. Keep one of those developers on a yearly salary of $80,000. We'd also like to fund $40,000 just in case we can bring some of those developers. Of course, they'd be located in Kings County at the Kings County Service Center to help aid the single app developers. Containing information that they're getting from the emergency center, from the National Weather Service. In a worst case, it would be difficult for one person to do this, and that's why we're asking for the reserve fund. As you can see, the first year cost includes the reserve fund would be $200,000. That includes the 3 people for 6 months, keeping one person for a full year, and then the $40,000 reserve fund. And then subsequent year costs, having to refill that reserve fund would be $80,000 a year to keep on the one app developer. Folks occur about every 1 in 3 years, and we're hoping to save the city about $100,000 per month by efficiently evacuating people and saving that $300 per each person. So our final thoughts is we've done the research and we've created a GPS-based code that looks something like this, and all we're asking is for you to develop it and implement it. And we're the Institution for Flood Safety and Evacuation. Thank you.
Thank you.